What's up, everyone? Today we are going to talk about a topic that I am quite passionate about. Not wanting to build muscle, just wanting to tone your body. It's something that as a trainer I've heard so many times over the years, and I'm going to tell you why this is completely wrong. Hey everyone, in case we haven't met, my name is Rad Burmeister. I am one of the co-founders of Unity Gym and co-creators of the UMS, Unify Movement System, where we turn driven people into strong, flexible, and fit athletes. If you want to know how we do it and get an insight into our revolutionary movement system, grab one of the free blueprints, the Strength Blueprint, the Flexibility Blueprint, or the Nutrition Blueprint. They all contain invaluable information that is, going to give you an insight into what we do here. You can grab them by clicking the link. If you're watching the YouTube video, the link in the description, or if you're listening to this on a podcast, there'll be links in the comments section. I'm here by myself today. Yanni and Phil are both off working from home and taking care of some business off-site out of the gym. So I'm just here with Richard today. How are you, Richie?
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Yeah, so I'm going to require some interaction from those of you that are watching on the live stream in the UMS Movement Mastermind. So I can see we've got a bunch of people on the live stream. Just give me a little hello and where you're watching from, just so I know who's here and I know that I'm talking to someone. Makes my job a lot easier. Today, I'm basically the reason why I've chosen this topic for today is that someone in one of our classes this morning, a lady who I would presume is in her 60s, maybe 70s, who's new to the gym, said something to me that I've had said to me so many times over the years, and it's almost always by women. I think there is a fear within women of getting bulky and turning into this bulky looking bodybuilder. And what was said to me is, Rad, I don't want to build muscle, I just want to tone my body. And I want to break that down. I want to get inside that statement, inside that mentality, and hopefully try to create some awareness around the issues with this statement. The first thing that I want to say is I want to let you know that if that statement resonates with you, you're not alone. This is something that is it's a really common thing that a lot of women have said to me over the years. I'll be honest, I haven't had many men say this to me. I think men aspire to build muscle more because that image of the Arnold Schwarzenegger or the fit muscular man, I think that does appeal to men a bit more. And without being a woman myself, of course, all I can do is speculate based on what I've been told by female clients and female members over the years. And it is something that a lot of women have this fear around. They have this fear that when they lift weights that they're going to turn into a bulky looking bodybuilder. And the first thing that I want to say is I don't want to discredit your feelings if that is something that you feel. I totally respect that for a lot of women that is not something that they aspire to. That women don't, the majority of women that I've trained at least, and definitely everybody that's said this statement to me, they don't want to be bulky and have this bulk of muscle on them like what a lot of men aspire to. But I just want to break this down. I want to talk to you about, firstly, genetics and the role that genetics plays in that. And secondly, how much work is required to actually get there. And third, I want to talk about why the word tone is a made-up word. It's not a word that's used by trainers or strength and conditioning coaches. And then I also want to debunk why this is not a good way to be thinking about these things. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the fear around for not wanting to build muscle and just wanting to tone your body. And I guess where it comes from is that for a lot of women, when they look at these Miss Olympia bodybuilders and the women that are at the top of the bodybuilding industry, and they think, well, I really don't want to look like that. And what I want you to understand firstly is how much work goes into them looking like that. That does not happen from turning up to the gym, for an hour a day, a couple of days a week, and doing a strength, flexibility, and fitness session like what we do in the UMS. That comes from some highly dedicated strength training, often doing 2 weights training sessions a day that last from anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, living a lifestyle that revolves around building muscle, meaning that they eat high protein meals 6 or 7 times a day. Often there's steroids and God knows what other performance enhancing substances that go into it, and genetics plays a really big part in it as well. The people that you see that are at the top of the food chain, the top of this physique model looking chain, often have genetics that are geared towards building muscle. So the first thing that I want to say is, you are not in danger, ladies, of looking like those bodybuilders that are up there. You need to train so hard. Being a man and naturally having more testosterone than women, testosterone is one of the hormones that is critical in muscle development. So that's one of the reasons why men grow more muscle than women naturally, because we have more testosterone. So being a man, I'm naturally geared towards building muscle more than a woman is. And Yanni, Richard and me work our asses off to build muscle. You do not understand how hard we train and how much our whole training regime is around building muscle. And we train for anywhere from 2 to 2.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week. And we eat the right way. We have all the protein supplements that you need to maximize muscle protein synthesis. And being at an age that is primed for building muscle, in my early 40s, I'm on the age where testosterone is just starting to decline in my body, and I have to work my ass off to build just a couple of kilos of muscle. So the fear of saying I don't want to build muscle, for almost any woman out there, it's you just don't understand how hard you're going to have to work to do that. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to address is this word tone. I don't want to build muscle. I just want to tone my muscles. Tone is a completely made up word. It's made up by the masses, by the gym goers. It is not a word that is ever used by a trainer that knows anything about the way that the body is built. So no trainer that knows what they're talking about ever says, I'm going to tone your body for you. You either want to build muscle or lose fat, or a combination of the both. And what people say is toning, where they say, wow, that person's got good tone in their body, or I want to have a toned body like that person. It just means that they've got a desirable ratio of body fat compared to muscle development, and that's all it is. If you've got the right ratio of you've built enough muscle and you've reduced your body fat, then you have this toned look in your body. That's what it is. So the first thing you want to do is really eliminate that word tone from your vocabulary. And what you want to think of is you want to have the right combination of losing fat and building muscle. That's what you're looking for. So you want to be clear on which one of those you want. Do I want to lose fat, or do I want to build muscle? But what I really want to talk about today, so I've already gone over how hard it is to build muscle. I really hope that what I've got you to understand is that you've got a very low risk of building too much muscle. One of the things that happens, I've seen this a lot. I've seen women come and start training at the gym and start lifting weights, and they say, "Oh, I'm bulking up. I'm getting too chunky," and what often happens when you start working out and when you start consuming more calories is that you can start retaining more water in your fat cells when you eat the wrong combinations of carbohydrate, protein, and fat. And you can retain more fluid in the fat cells, which gives you a more bulky look. And that can happen very quickly. That can happen in a matter of days, and you can lose it as quickly as you get it if you eat the right foods. This is one of the things the bodybuilders do when they do what's called cutting to get onto the stage, so that they look really, really lean, is that they try to reduce the amount of fluid of water retention that's within the fat cells so that they appear to be leaner. And it's something that happens very, very quickly. You know, they do that in the last week of their training. They go through what's called a cutting phase. Now, mind you, if there's any bodybuilders out there that are listening, I've never done bodybuilding, ever. I've never done a bulking and a cutting phase, so I have a very limited knowledge of what goes on. But being a personal trainer for 17 years, I've worked with a lot of people that do this stuff, so I've heard it from them. Yeah, what often happens with people when they start training at the gym and they start going, oh my God, I'm getting bulky, is that it's just that your fat cells are retaining more fluid. So you shouldn't be fearful of lifting weights. What you should be looking at is more, how can I refine my diet? And it's usually cutting back on the refined carbohydrate. And there's a lot that goes into that. That's not what I want to talk about today. What I do want to talk about is this concept of, I don't want to build muscle. I just want to tone my body. And it's a really sad moment for me every time somebody says that, because what it comes from is, it comes from an idea that the reason why you train is to look better. And whilst that is a good motivation to get started, in the UMS at Unity Gym, it's something that we work very hard to try and get people to steer away from and focus more on movement goals. We like to believe that fitness and health shouldn't be measured by how you look. It should be measured by the way that you perform and feel. Okay, so I want to go deeper into that. What happens as you age, and you can Google this. Google something called sarcopenia. S-A-R-C-O, P-E-N-I-A, sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is the advanced stages of muscle loss that occurs naturally as we age. Now, I want you to wrap your head around this. Up until the age of 35, we're all genetically geared to build muscle and maintain it naturally. So by doing nothing up until the age of 35, you'll maintain your muscle mass pretty well. From the age of 35 onwards, that starts to decline. And men actually lose muscle mass at a rate of 0.6% of their total muscle mass per year. And women lose muscle mass at a rate of 0.9% of their muscle mass per year. So women, you're in a lot more trouble than men. Now, what does this lead to? Okay, in later stages, it usually starts in people's 60s is when sarcopenia usually starts to take effect. That's when the muscle mass becomes so low that it starts to have detrimental effects to your body. It affects the way that you regulate hormones and your metabolism, which means that you also retain fat easier. Your body is, the amount of muscle mass that you have on your body is what regulates how well you metabolize fat, because the muscle is like the motor in the car, and the fat is like the fuel to the motor. So the bigger the motor is, the more muscle you have, the higher the requirement of fuel, of fat it is, which means, in a very basic way of explaining it, is more, if you have more muscle, you burn more fat, which means you retain less fat in your fat cells. So an even simpler way would say, have more muscle on your body, you'll have less fat on your body. It's a very, very simple way of explaining it. Sorry, I've got a sneeze coming on here. Excuse me. Very simplified way of saying it, but it is an accurate statement. So let's talk about somebody that goes to the gym, starts lifting weights, and says, oh, I don't want to build muscle, I just want to tone my body. And they're in their, let's say you're in your 40s and 50s. Right now you haven't felt any effects of sarcopenia. Go through that for the next 20 years and you might look the way that you want to, but eventually you're going to get to a point where that mentality of not wanting to build muscle is going to catch up to you. And this is a fact. This is not a possibility. This is a fact. This is a probability. This is going to happen to you. You are going to get to a point in your life where your muscle mass now is at a level where it's deteriorated, it's wasted away, to a point where you now cannot move as well as you could when you were in your 20s and 30s and even 40s. Guaranteed, it's going to happen. It is a fact of life. And this is something that we thought used to just be something that happened as we aged. We used to think, Um, Alexandra is saying that notorious statement, I just want to tone, shaking my head. Yeah, it's so true. This is something that people used to think that that it was a fact of life that as you aged, you became frail and you couldn't move as well. So that once you were in your 70s and 80s, you became one of these people that struggled to get in and out of a chair and had to use a walking frame to walk around. And we now know that that is not the case. It is something that happens because you didn't stimulate muscle growth through your body by doing resistance training, also known as weightlifting. And what happened was that your muscles slowly deteriorated and wasted away. So again, I'm going to go back to it. The idea of I don't want to build muscle, I just want to tone. Well, that might be how you feel now, but one day when you can't get up and down out of a chair without assistance, when you can't walk up and down a flight of stairs without assistance, when you can't even jog because your muscles are just so weak that you literally can't break out of a walk, I would argue that at that point you might be thinking, oh God, I wish I had more muscle mass, if you understood what muscle mass is and what muscle mass does to you. So it's really, really important that you wrap your head around this. If you're one of these people that thinks, I don't want to build muscle, I just want to tone, it's a real misunderstanding of the way that the body works. Our muscles are literally what cause us to move. Muscles, I don't want to say they shouldn't be used as a tool of just for aesthetic goals of the way you look, but this is why we don't like bodybuilding. This is why we don't promote bodybuilding. Now, I've got a lot of friends that are bodybuilders. Okay, so I'm not trying to rag on people for their reasons for training, but personally, for us, our mission with Unity Gym and with the UMS is to try to educate people to stop using exercise as a means to look good and to use exercise as a means to make you move better and make you feel better. And when you shift to that mindset, then you should want to build muscle. You should want to be more flexible. You should want to be fitter, because these are the things that are going to make you move better. They're the things that are going to make you feel better within your body, and they're definitely going to make you age better. And I can tell you right now, if you're a female over the age of 35, you have no idea how hard you have to work to build muscle. It is so hard. Now, you could just go to the gym and do the basic UMS workouts that we do once a day, 5 days a week, and eat the right way, and you might build maybe, anywhere from for the average female, 1 to 3 kilos of muscle in 6 months. But beyond that, it is very, very hard. You hit a point where to go beyond that, God, you've got to do a lot of hard work. And then, your training will be about, maintaining your muscle mass and maintaining your strength, or even you can build more strength without building more muscle, because there's a lot of things that go into strength development that aren't just about muscle size. So it's a really important conversation to have, and it's an important thing to challenge yourself on, to ask yourself, why would you say the statement? Why would you say, I don't want to build muscle, I just want to tone my body? And I would throw it out there that it is a statement that is driven by vanity. It's driven by wanting to look a certain way and not wanting to, look another way. And I'm gonna say this again. That's an okay reason to join the gym. It's something that is very ingrained in us as humans. We like to peacock. We all want to look nice, and it comes from wanting to mate. It's a primal urge to want to mate and to want to get a mate, and getting a mate is as animals, we have to appeal to the opposite sex, and so it's something that is ingrained in the way that we are. But on a higher level, to use our brains to be able to think intelligently and to be able to steer our lives, we need to ask the questions as we age and as we try to motivate ourselves to train, as to what do I want for the next 10 or 20 years of my life? And it might seem like a long way away, but I can tell you that the birth of the UMS, the reason why we created this program that has a balance between strength, flexibility, and fitness, that's all about creating a balanced body, is it's that Yanni and I really, when we were in our early to mid 30s, we started to challenge ourselves as to what we'd achieved in the last 10 to 15 years of our training. And we started to ask the question, do we want more of what we've created, or do we want something else? Or another way to say it is, do we want to keep going in the direction that we're headed, or do we want to alter our direction? And we weren't happy with where we were going. Yanni was very focused on bodybuilding at that time. He was very much about physique and about the way that he looked, and he didn't move well. He was in quite a bit of ongoing aches and pains through his body. And I was the total opposite end of the spectrum. I moved quite well. I was all about martial arts, but I was very weak, and I didn't have good muscle tone in my body. And I wasn't happy with that direction. And so I really asked myself that question. I asked myself, do I want, I looked back at what I'd achieved in the last 10 years of my training and of the direction that my life had gone. And I said, is this what I want for the next 10 years? Where do I want to be when I'm 40? And I'm very, very happy that I went through this process, because at 42, I'm so happy with what I've achieved in the last decade. Whereas when I was 32 and I looked back at what I'd achieved in that last decade, I wasn't happy with it. I didn't look at the state that my body was in and think, I'm proud of this. And I can tell you right now, I have worked so hard in the last few years, especially to build as much muscle as I possibly can, without going to the extremes of what bodybuilders do, while still working in the realm of what the UMS is, which is still balancing my training with strength and flexibility and movement-based training, making sure that the reason why I want to build muscle is so that I can move better. I'm not trying to build muscle so that I can look better. So, I'd really ask all of you, anyone that is resonating with this statement, that you feel this way, that you think, I don't want to build muscle, I just want to tone my body. You really need to challenge yourself on why are you doing this, and then start to listen what I'm saying, because a decade ago, in my earlier years of being a personal trainer, I started to learn about sarcopenia, but something that's even scarier than sarcopenia is something that's a new term that's only been around for maybe a decade or a decade and a half, which is called sarcobesity, which is the combination of sarcopenia and obesity, which is on the rise in people above the age of 65, which is the loss of muscle mass combined with obesity. So we're seeing these people that are above the age of 65 that are in what's called the morbidly obese category, where they're so obese that their risk of heart disease and stroke is so highly elevated, but that's combined with a really horrible loss of muscle mass, so that not only, even if they were at a healthy body fat percentage, they still wouldn't be able to move very well because they've lost so much muscle mass. But you combine that with carrying an extra 60 or 70 pounds of fat, or 30 or 40 kilos of fat, and it's disastrous. It's disastrous. You're getting people that can only get around on these little mobiles because they just can't walk. They can't carry their own body weight. And people like to fall back on this, it's genetics, it's my genetics that caused me to be this way. But I'm going to throw a little bit of a stone at that opinion. And what I've learnt when I've gone, and I'm going to tell you about where I've learnt this stuff from. What I've learnt is that genetics only account for about 2 to 3% of people being in that category of sarcobesity, okay? 2 to 3% of people have a genetic disposition to putting on body fat. Where do I get that from? Recently I've read that in a book called The Biology of Belief, which is by a guy named Bruce Lipton, who's a geneticist. And he's, I'm pretty sure that at the time of writing that book, he was in his 60s or 70s. He'd been a geneticist for either 30 or 40 years. So you can check that out. Also from going to, I've done a few talks with, oh God, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a leader on metabolic research at Melbourne University, at the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, and considered a forefront of the research in metabolic research in the world. He lectures all over the world. I can't remember his name. Anyway, but we've learnt this stuff. Yanni and I and Richard and Phil, have learnt this stuff based on some of the most current research. So these are, Mike has said it. He's nailed it here. Genetics loads the barrel, lifestyle pulls the trigger. And where did you hear that saying from, Mike? Because I'm pretty sure that is something that Bruce Lipton says in The Biology of Belief. Billy Bob is, hey Finchy, how are you, brother? I served in the army with Billy Bob, Damien there. You're saying super interesting, man. Yeah, it's true, man. Yeah, look, genetics, the saying that Mike has said there, genetics loads the barrel but lifestyle pulls the trigger, is so true. And what that means is, what we learn about in the biology of belief, and what is the more current research on genetics is actually something called epigenetics. So genetics are what we're born with, but epigenetics are where the genetics that we have. Epigenetics is this idea that that certain genetic traits can either be switched on or switched off, or rather left off or switched on, depending on our lifestyle. So the choices that we make are actually far more important in the way that our bodies develop rather than the genetics that we were born in. And that's a much more contemporary way of looking at genetics that, in Bruce Lipton's words, is something that is still not very understood. It's not as it's a much newer way of looking at genetics, epigenetics. So again, you can Google it. But what you can take away from this is, I want to stay on topic here. If you go through life with the idea that I don't want to build muscle, I just want to tone my body, I guarantee you that you are one day going to get to a point where you don't care about the way that your body is toned. What you care about is the way that you move and getting rid of the aches and pains that you are suffering with in your body. And we have an aging population in the West. You only need to go back to, I think in the 50s, I think the average life expectancy was like 55 or 65 in the Western world. And if you go back to the start of the 20th century, so only 120 years ago, only a few generations ago, I think the average life expectancy was like in the 40s. It's just ridiculous how in such a short period of time, how much our life expectancy has increased. So what we have to do is we have to think now, it's not so much how long am I going to live, it's more about what is that quality of my life going to be like. Because again, up until the age of, and everybody goes through this thing where they get to their late 30s, early 40s. We've had people in tears in the gym talking about how they just can't believe how they've put on 20 kilos in the last 10 years. They're not doing anything different. And that's the problem. What you do in your 30s does not work, or what you did in your 20s doesn't work in your 30s. And if you don't change things, then by the time you get to your 40s, you're in trouble. And if you still don't change things, then by the time you get into your 50s and 60s, you're in real trouble. So we need to start having these conversations, and we need to start making these decisions that are much more around what is my life? What is the quality of my life going to be like as I live into my 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s, and maybe even 90s? What is that quality of life going to be like? Because there are plenty of examples of people that understand this, that are in their 70s and 80s, that have amazing muscle tone and definition on their body and that move so well. And I've heard people say, I've heard women say when they point out these women that are in their 80s that are flexing their biceps, and they say, I don't want to look like that. And I go, oh man, that's not going to work out well for you. That's not going to work out well if you go into your 70s and 80s still focusing on how you look and not on how you move. Let's just have a look at some of the comments that you guys are saying, because I'm going to have to wrap this up and get into the UMS online coaching group. So yeah, Alexandra is saying, that notorious statement, I just want to tone. Marissa Harcrow is saying, first time being able to listen live. Awesome. Hope you got something out of the show. Diane Norbury is saying, resuming regular training in my early 60s after 20 years of doing very little. I have significantly increased muscle mass all over. However, lower body is definitely lagging behind the upper body. Well, Diane, you're in the right place. We're gonna really help you fix that. Billy Bob saying, super interesting, Rad. Mark is saying, can't recall but heard it and never left my mind. Yeah, it's so true, that statement. Genetics loads the barrel, lifestyle pulls the trigger. You really need to understand that. Sharon Lynn is saying, love this topic, worth thinking and digging deeper. It really is, really is. Jonathan Leffler is saying, my last graduate school course was on epigenetics. Awesome stuff to research. Yeah, I mean, I know so little about it, Jonathan. I've pretty much learned all I have about epigenetics from a book. And generally speaking, you have to be careful getting your knowledge from books because books are opinionated. But a book that's written by a geneticist like Bruce Lipton, it was good for me. It definitely taught me some stuff that I didn't know about before. Erica is saying, I'm of the opinion that if you focus on improving performance, the physique changes will follow as a result anyway, because if performance was truly a goal, you would want to eat appropriately in order to fuel that level of training. And Erica, that is why you are one of our star performers at Unity Gym, because that is absolutely the mentality that we want to create and spread. That is our goal at Unity Gym, is to get people to focus on performance, because I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I'm pretty happy with my physique, the way that I look for a 42-year-old, and I don't focus on the way that I look at all. And I could say the same for Richard and Yanni. They both look pretty amazing, and we focus on the way we perform. Our focus is on creating a structurally balanced body that can move well, that has a balance between strength and flexibility, and that we're also fit. And guess what? Your body becomes toned and looking great as a result of that, And another thing, I'm just going to say really quickly, one of the first things that you have to get rid of in your mentality around the way you look is stop looking at anybody else and saying, I want to look like them. You'll never look like anybody else, ever. Our bodies are all unique, and we all have our own way of looking. And if you're looking at somebody, a celebrity or anybody on Instagram, and saying, I want to look like that person, you're really selling yourself short. You're really doing yourself an injustice. Sharon Lynn is saying it's hard to get this message across to family and friends unless they're at the right stage of their own journey, though. Sharon, you'll never be able to do it. I've wasted a lot of my life trying to get people that are close to me to start exercising and making a healthy and positive change in their life. And what I've learned is that you just can't do it. The only thing that you can do is lead from the front by making the change in your own body. And eventually, when people want to make that change, they will ask you, what do you do? And when that question is asked, you're then in a position to be able to influence someone. But yeah, you'll never influence anybody by trying to educate them. And the best thing that you can do is be the beacon of light within your circle of influence. And when people are ready, they'll come to you and ask you what it is that you do. Marissa is saying, I absolutely want to build muscles. That's just awesome, guys. I'm so happy to hear you say that, and I'm so happy to see the engagement that we've had on this show. It was inspired by that exact statement being said to me in one of this morning's classes by one of our new members at the gym. The member said to me, I don't want to build muscle, Rad. I just want to tone my body after we'd done this session of weights and flexibility training. So we might go deeper into this tomorrow. If anybody's got any questions that are specific to this topic, let me know, and I'll see if I can answer them for you tomorrow. I'm going to jump over into the UMS online coaching group to give specific coaching advice for our members now. So for those of you that are listening, that are part of that group, come and join it. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone. See you soon.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, that's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.